There was no one to confirm it. I panicked because I was clearly suspected of murder. I had only recently lived in this town, and I had no acquaintances. And his reaction was quite aggressive. "You keep trying to accuse me." The man was starting to feel that this would not end well, but the worst was yet to come. Michael had knives in a wooden block, and detectives asked why the slots were empty. He explained that he bought the block and acquired the knives selectively. Then detectives examined his hands. When they finished, admins also had questions. I asked where it happened. They replied, "Dawn, do you know?" I said no, I didn't know where she was. Mariora could periodically disappear, just take a break for one reason or another and go somewhere. This sounded suspicious, but the police had no reason to detain Michael Edmonds. However, they had one more question for him. They wanted to get a DNA sample from Michael, and he provided it. Given that Mariora was raped, the killer's DNA could be in her body. But Michael and Mariora had a romantic relationship, so proving his guilt or innocence was much more difficult. Soon, the autopsy results for Mariora Shend came back. It was revealed that she had been stabbed 8 times. There were also 7 cutting wounds on her body, some on the fingers of her left hand, which indicated that she tried to defend herself. The cause of death was blood loss from stab wounds, but that wasn't all the information obtained from the autopsy. The victim had been raped, and experts managed to find seminal fluid and extract DNA from it. The autopsy also showed exactly what happened in the last minutes of Mariora's life. The evidence on the body suggested that the killer first beat the victim several times, stabbed her, cut her throat, and only then desecrated her. The experts stated that the woman was raped while she was dying. A DNA sample means that the perpetrator's identity can be established without a shadow of a doubt. Investigators just needed to find him. Mariora Shend was known for her good nature, generosity, and cheerfulness. Despite her petite stature, she energized everyone around her. Her wonderful sense of humor and ability to make friends evoked only positive emotions from those around her. However, unfortunately, in July 2002, Mariora was found dead in her apartment, where she had recently moved after a conflict with her boyfriend. She hadn't even had time to unpack her things. Some were still lying on the floor in the corner of the room or were in unopened boxes. Mariora's case was still unsolved, and in the city, another surprisingly similar crime occurred, the murder of Leon Martinez. Detectives decided to conduct a joint investigation with the county police, given that the women were killed in a similar way. Although the victims did not know each other, investigators were convinced that there was some connection between these crimes. They searched for potential suspects and a detail that could link them. Gradually, the theory that both crimes were committed by the same person came to the forefront. In this case, the main suspect in Mariora's murder, her former boyfriend Michael Edmonds, could be excluded because he did not know Leon Martinez. And when the DNA analysis results came back, all suspicions against him were cleared. Meanwhile, the case moved forward. Police were informed that a man named Richard Fresks had sold a car stereo similar to the one missing from the victim's car. But when police decided to question Fresks, he could not be found. Fortunately, his relatives gave another clue. Information came in that Richard had gone to his cousin's house and left some clothes there. These items were seized by the investigation and used as evidence. Among them were shoes that Richard had discarded. They were stained with blood, but did the sole pattern match the prints found in Mariora Shend's house? To answer this question, a thorough analysis was needed to understand if Richard was involved in the murder of the first victim. Meanwhile, investigators found a connection between Leon Martinez and Richard Fresks. They found that the girl had a large circle of acquaintances. Richard often communicated with her and her various friends, but finding a connection between Mariora Shend and Richard Fresks proved more difficult. Intuition led investigators to the woman's workplace. They found out that she worked at a local hotel, cleaning rooms. Perhaps Mariora and Richard met at the hotel. Talking to the manager, detective struck gold. "I have hotel receipts from the Hampton here." Among the papers, the manager found an arrival receipt for him. On July 20, 2002, he checked in at 4:54 p.m. and checked out on September 6th. Detectives were also shown the room cleaning schedule, which indicated that Mariora Shend cleaned the room after Richard Fresks stayed at the hotel. This meant that the suspect in Leon Martinez's murder could have been in contact with Mariora Shend less than a month before her murder. The checkout time is not always exact. It is more likely the time of deletion from the system. Then the police discovered another connection between Fresks and Mariora. Detectives received information from a person who provided Richard with a job at a church located in the same square as the woman's house. It was later revealed that the suspect had been in the same places as Mariora. But where was Richard Fresks himself? A week later, federal marshals arrested Richard in California, and detectives from Taos went there to question him. "I'll ask you a few questions. I am sure you heard that another woman named Mariora was murdered in Taos on Church Square." "Yes, I heard." They asked him about his whereabouts on the days Mariora Shend was in her apartment. Richard said that on the specified dates, he was with certain people in different places, but definitely far from the crime scene. On this square in June or July, then investigators decided to change tactics and ask about Leon Martinez. Now, I'll go ahead and say that your actions led to Leon Martinez's death. Clearly, we know that. But wait, that the murder could have been accidental, not premeditated, but you committed it. Sometimes, if detectives believe a person is responsible for a crime, they give them two options, one of which is safer to confess to than the other. But in both cases, it is about the same act. But Fresks confessed to nothing during the interrogation. Richard denied his involvement in both crimes. He provided a DNA sample and requested a lawyer. Fresks was arrested for a past crime, and they waited for the test results. At that moment, detectives did not consider the version of two different killers, as there was no indication of it then. The results were supposed to answer whether the crimes were connected, and something came as a surprise. The lab report stated that the DNA matched. The seminal fluid found on Leon Martinez corresponded to the sample taken from Richard Fresks, as did the blood on his shoes. But none of this related to Mariora Shend. Fresks was found guilty of Leon Martinez's murder, and the case was closed. However, the investigation into Mariora Shend's murder did not move an inch, and detectives had to start all over again. Soon, an unexpected turn occurred in the case that truly led investigators to the very beginning. Emergency services. I want to report something. What happened? I heard a woman was killed in the Rancho's block. Yes, I know who did it. Listen, his name is, I saw blood on him. The same Nathaniel Duran who testified during the initial questioning of neighbors called and said he gave Nathaniel a ride, and he looked shocked, nervous, and not himself. And he had blood on his hair, nose, and ear. He told the caller that he killed a woman he was seen near the place where it happened. He lives next door. The caller said Duran was the victim's neighbor and hung up. Police traced the new witness's coordinates, and he agreed to testify. Nathaniel called me and asked me for a ride. I noticed he wasn't too well. He was trembling all over. I asked what happened. At first, he didn't want to talk about it, but then I told him he could tell me everything. We shared everything. Clear. I asked him again what happened. He replied that he did something bad to a girl. He hurt her. I asked, is she alive? Is she okay? He said he stabbed her 8 times in the neck. He said, why? I asked him about it. He said the devil possessed him. I asked if he used cocaine or anything else. The story matched what forensic experts found at the crime scene. It turned out that the informant had information that no one else knew. As a result, Nathaniel became the main suspect in Mariora's murder. There was another reason why he could be a suspect. Nathaniel Duran was the landlord's grandson. He had previously met the woman and had access to her apartment. This explained the absence of signs of forced entry on the door. When Nathaniel became the main suspect in the murder, police went to search the house where he lived. They found sneakers whose sole pattern matched the prints found in Mariora Shend's apartment. With this information, police detained Nathaniel to question him and obtain a DNA sample. Excuse me, when will the results be ready? I understand. They will be ready soon. He voluntarily provided a DNA sample but was very nervous when the analysis was taken, constantly asking when the results would come. Then detectives photographed his hands to find out if there were any wounds on them. Finally, let me photograph the back of your hands, of course. I forgot to do that initially, based on the evidence from the crime scene and the nature of Mariora Shend's injuries. The perpetrator hit her while she was trying to hold the door. So, detectives examined his hands for any injuries or signs of struggle. Additionally, he might have had cuts from a knife or other sharp object that he might have held in his hand. When a perpetrator inflicts stab wounds, the knife can slip and wound the perpetrator himself. Any such clues would be useful to detectives. Are you right-handed or left-handed? I am right-handed. Clear. And do you have knives? No. You don't carry a knife with you? No. Never. Only in the mountains. I understand, and usually not my knife. So, you don't carry knives with you, and never did? No. During the examination of Nathaniel's hands, detectives saw that he had a cut on his right palm. When did you hurt your hand recently? In the mountains. Deep cut. What were you doing from July 6th to 7th? What days are those? Saturday night to Sunday. Last week. Yes, Mrs. Shend was found on the 9th. I was in Pia. Yes, sir. When Nathaniel was asked about his whereabouts, he replied that he was far away at a party with friends. The detective got the impression that he was deliberately distancing himself. We are collecting evidence and want to clear you from the list of suspects. Clear. If you are not guilty, we need to check other suspects. The tactic with multiple suspects is that detectives don't accuse but ask for help or information. It is fine. I have nothing to worry about. If I were involved, I wouldn't have come to the police. Exactly. We are grateful for your help. They start looking for signs, how a person behaves, what their body language says, what their reaction is. And at some point, detectives reveal their hand. Nathaniel, we have extensive experience investigating such crimes. Everything now points to your guilt. Wait, I'll tell you why we decided that. You want to pin this on me. Nathaniel, we have no doubt that you did this. Detectives changed tactics and let him know that whatever he said next, they knew he was guilty. Then he broke down and cried. It was an accident, really. It was an accident. Yes. When Nathaniel composed himself, he demanded a lawyer and the interrogation stopped. I have nothing more to say, okay? We were ending the interrogation. Time is 12:45. Nathaniel was taken into custody. Later, the DNA analysis data found on Shend were received. The results matched the samples provided by Nathaniel. As a result, he was charged with the rape and murder of Mariora Shend. The trial took place on December 16, 2003. The defense's version was that Nathaniel went to visit Mariora. He knocked on the door, they chatted, and she invited him in. They engaged in intimate relations, after which he left and knew nothing more. However, the jury was not convinced. They delivered a guilty verdict, and Duran was sentenced to life imprisonment. In late January 2008, Nathaniel Duran was found dead in his prison cell. He committed suicide. Friends, what do you think about this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and my Telegram channel. All links will be in the description under this video. See you soon.